Joaquín, a man in a wheelchair, lives with his loyal dog, Casimiro. One day, Joaquín calls the vet to ask if an operation could help Casimiro walk again, but the vet confirms it's impossible. So, Joaquín starts looking for a way to help his dog pass peacefully. Eventually, Joaquín gets a type of sleeping pill and mixes it into dog biscuits. One day, a young woman named Berta and her daughter Betty arrive at Joaquín's house. They saw an ad for a room to rent and decided to inquire without an appointment, which irritates Joaquín. Betty tries to approach Casimiro but gets barked at. Joaquín quickly warns that the dog isn't fond of strangers. Although Joaquín is reluctant, Berta decides to rent the room and moves in immediately. Because they are in a tough situation, and Joaquín needs the rent money to avoid foreclosure. Joaquín is introverted and doesn't seem very friendly, but Berta tries to connect with him. She cleans the house and shares her story. Berta dreamed of being a dancer, but ended up performing in a strip club. The atmosphere in the house starts to get chaotic. Berta likes to play loud music, and Betty often hides in unexpected corners of the house. One day, Berta goes looking for Betty and stumbles upon a wrecked car. She wonders why it's there. Later, she finds Betty hiding in a closet. Berta discovers old photos of Joaquín, and on his birthday, she and Betty surprise him with a warm dinner. During dinner, Berta reveals that Betty isn't mute, but chooses not to speak. The conversation continues until Berta asks Joaquín why he doesn't sell the house and use the money to pay off his debts, but he seems to have some attachment to it. Joaquín spends most of his time in the basement working on electronics, while Berta spends her life dancing and caring for her daughter. One day, Casimiro approaches Betty, surprising everyone. Seeing this, Joaquín goes back to the basement. He lights a cigarette and cries, but continues to work. One night, Joaquín hears strange noises from the house next door. He uses a stethoscope against the wall to listen and discovers several men are watching him. They even know he uses a wheelchair and agree to return when it's quieter. Worried, Joaquín installs a microphone on the wall, connecting it to his computer to record their conversations. He then goes upstairs to have dinner with Berta and Betty. The next morning, Joaquín listens to the recording and jots down the names he hears, but the conversation is vague. The only thing he can make out is that they are moving some kind of wood. To find out more, Joaquín secretly drills a small hole in the wall and inserts a tiny camera connected to his computer, hiding it behind an old computer case. Fearing danger, Joaquín tells Berta and Betty to move out quickly without explaining why. Berta is furious and reminds him the lease isn't up, accusing Joaquín of being afraid to trust others. She gives him until morning to reconsider. That night, Joaquín sits alone, analyzing what he has gathered. From his observations, Joaquín realizes the men only work at night and seem to be digging something like a tunnel. The men plan to finish it before Christmas Eve. The next morning, Joaquín tells Berta that she and her daughter can stay. Then, Joaquín goes back to the basement and starts watching the camera footage closely, taking notes on everything. He hears the men talking about using explosives, but what shocks him most is seeing Berta secretly climbing the roof into the house next door. She knows the men and is cooperating with the gang leader, Gallaretto. In truth, Berta rented the room to spy on Joaquín. Gallaretto scolds her for being too reckless before giving her a special key and instructing her to communicate only via text message from now on. That night, something strange happens. Betty walks into Joaquín's room wearing only her underwear. She stands there silently watching him sleep for a while, then leaves without a word. Meanwhile, Joaquín continues to watch everything through the camera, and finally, he sees the men studying some kind of blueprint, making it clear they are digging a tunnel to rob the bank. On the street corner, the next day, while Berta is out shopping, Joaquín tries to befriend Betty by admiring her drawings, but the little girl still ignores him. Soon, Joaquín discovers that Betty can actually speak, but she only talks to Casimiro. Curious, Joaquín hides a microphone in the dog's collar to listen to her. After that, Joaquín begins to understand the gang's plan better. They will transport the stolen money through the tunnel using a small cart. While planning, Galaretto finds out that a team member, Muko, secretly used his mobile phone to send the bank's address to someone. Furious, Galaretto orders Muko to be brought to him before turning on Zerdo, who brought him into the gang. When Muko is dragged to the basement, he is severely beaten and tied to a table. Muko cries and pleads, saying he only texted a girl he likes and didn't reveal any information about the robbery plan. But Galaretto doesn't believe him, accusing Muko of endangering the entire mission. Then, he brutally stabs him with a screwdriver before finishing him off by hitting him on the head until he dies. Joaquín watches everything unfold on camera, clutching his phone tightly but too scared to call the police. After the murder, Galaretto talks to Canario, his brother, about disposing of the body. They agree to have the corrupt police officer cooperating with them handle it. That night, Joaquín removes the microphone from Casimiro's collar to prevent Berta from interfering or warning the gang. Joaquín puts a sedative in her wine. Once Berta is unconscious, he ties her to the bed and sets an alarm on his phone to give her another dose when it's time. Then, he goes back to monitoring the gang's movements. In the latest recording, Joaquín hears that the corrupt cop warned them not to open safe deposit boxes number 747 and 748 because they belong to major criminals. Soon after, a new gang member arrives. She is a young woman named Ren, replacing Muko, and she brings the explosives for breaking into the bank. When Berta wakes up, Joaquín calmly feeds her and confronts her directly about her involvement with the gang. He asks why she got involved with someone like Galaretto, but Berta defends him, saying that even though Galaretto is a thief, he's not a violent person. Hearing that, Joaquín shows her the video of Muko's murder. Berta trembles and cries with remorse. After that, Joaquín talks to Betty. He reassures her that she doesn't need to be afraid of him anymore and invites Betty to move into his deceased daughter's room, telling her she can bring Casimiro with her. Then, Joaquín starts planning the riskiest move of his life. He wants to steal some of the money from the gang that is about to rob the bank. His plan is very simple. Joaquín will dig a hole in his floor down to the tunnel, wait for the gang's cart to pass by, and then reach down to grab the money. While helping Berta, who is still recovering, to stretch, Joaquín asks how long Betty hasn't spoken. Berta replies that the last time Betty spoke was when she was 4 years old. Joaquín picks up Berta's necklace, which has the key Galaretto gave her. Then Berta asks about his plan and warns him to be very careful if he's going to send texts from her phone. Everything has to look like she sent them. Joaquín then explains his plan to Berta in detail. She tries to warn him that the plan is too dangerous. Joaquín could get caught or killed, but Joaquín is confident in his plan. In the basement, Joaquín listens to the gang's latest conversation. He hears they've run into a problem because they accidentally hit a water pipe and just realized they've been digging in the wrong direction all along. Although it's fixable, it causes delays. The gang postpones the robbery from Christmas Eve to Christmas Day. This worries them. In Argentina, on the 24th, fireworks go off all over the city, which can cover the sound of drilling much better. The gang hopes that on the 25th, the holiday chaos will still help conceal their robbery. Unfortunately for Joaquín, the thieves change their plan from using small carts to stronger, sealed metal boxes. This means Joaquín can't reach down and grab money from the top as originally planned, so he needs a whole new plan. Joaquín finishes digging the hole under his house and installs a cover, camouflaging it with dirt to blend in with the surrounding floor. Then he goes down into the tunnel to inspect the broken water pipe. Taking detailed measurements, Joaquín confirms that water is still flowing through the pipe. As he's about to climb back up, he hears footsteps approaching. It's Galaretto and Canario. Joaquín quickly hides in an unused part of the tunnel and smears dirt on his face. To avoid being seen, he lies still in the dark as Galaretto and Canario walk past. While hiding, Joaquín overhears them talking about a secret safe house that only Galaretto, Canario, and Zerdo know about. Canario seems unhappy that Zerdo is still involved, especially after what happened with Muko, and clearly expresses his distrust. When they leave the tunnel, Joaquín rushes back to the house to give Berta another dose of sedative, but something is wrong. Betty is missing. Joaquín hurries to her room, calling Betty's name repeatedly, but there's no answer. Seeing Casimiro alone, he starts to piece things together. Betty must have climbed down into the tunnel. Joaquín rushes to the basement to check the security camera footage and finds that Betty has slipped into the neighbor's house and is walking near the gang's base of operations. Suddenly, the gang returns to their basement. Luckily, Betty knows she has to hide quickly. The robbers return with Gutman, the police officer cooperating with their robbery plan. While they are talking, Zerdo anxiously searches for his watch, convinced he dropped it there. Then, Gutman hands the gang a list of safe deposit boxes they mustn't touch, warning that those boxes are connected to alarms, and promises to reroute police patrols away from the area on the day of the robbery. Gutman asks Galarretto if he's really quitting after this job. Galarretto replies that he plans to run away with a woman and end his life of crime. In exchange, Gutman asks Galarretto to open safe deposit box number 155 to retrieve secret documents someone is using to blackmail him. Zerdo asks what's inside the box. Gutman says he doesn't want to know and warns them not to touch that safe deposit box at all. But Zerdo doesn't seem to care. As soon as the situation calms down, Betty quickly runs back. Joaquín helps her climb up through the opening under the floor. Seeing Betty safe, he hugs her tightly, reassuring her that it's all over. Soon, Joaquín discovers that Betty was the one who stole Zerdo's watch. Then, Galarretto chooses to call Berta instead of texting, meaning Berta has to answer herself. Joaquín begs her to take the call, but Berta is still angry and refuses to cooperate. Joaquín opens his laptop again and plays a recorded audio clip for her. Then he stops the clip and tells Berta that after connecting all the dots, Betty hasn't spoken for over 2 years, which is the same period she has known Galarretto. Then Joaquín plays another audio clip recorded from the dog's collar. It's Betty's faint voice talking to Casimiro, saying Galarretto had abused her. When the truth is revealed, Berta is heartbroken. She cries with regret for ever letting Galarretto into her life and can't accept what happened to her daughter. Joaquín tries to comfort her, emphasizing that he will deal with Galarretto once and for all. Although Berta is still confused, Joaquín tells her his entire plan. He plans to flood the tunnel to ruin the robbery. Finally, Berta decides to fight back and cooperates with Joaquín. When Galarretto calls again, she answers with a normal voice, saying everything is fine. Joaquín hardly goes down to the basement anymore. After hanging up, Joaquín gives Berta a dose of sedative to calm her down. That night, as Christmas Eve fireworks fill the sky, Joaquín and Betty watch them together quietly. Meanwhile, below, the gang is preparing to use explosives to break into the bank, intending to start the robbery at AM the next day. Joaquín uses this time to his advantage. He locks Betty safely in her room before sneaking down into the tunnel. Joaquín carefully repositions the explosives, placing them by the water pipe instead of the original target. Then he goes to the end of the tunnel and breaks into the bank. Joaquín successfully unlocks the heavily secured safe deposit boxes, especially number 748, which was one of the boxes the gang was warned not to touch. He grabs one bag of cash and quickly flees, not noticing that the safe door isn't completely closed. On his way back, Joaquín sees Ren inspecting the tunnel. He quickly hides as before, then hears the gang is activating the ventilation system. He knows the fans will suck all the oxygen out of the tunnel, so Joaquín has no choice but to retreat back into the bank to avoid suffocating. Luckily, the robbers take longer than expected, giving Joaquín time to escape and get back into his house. Meanwhile, Ren enters the bank with two of Galarretto's men, Peachy and Schwarzenegger. The three start opening safe deposit boxes according to Gutman's list, but when they reach box number 748, they find it's already been opened. Just then, the pipe starts leaking, and water quickly floods the tunnel. They think the explosion caused the damage, never suspecting someone tried to sabotage their plan. Ren quickly tells everyone to flee. On the other side, Galarretto, Canaria, and Zerdo also see the tunnel flooding, but instead of helping their accomplices, they grab the stolen money and flee to save themselves. Ren is the unluckiest. She tries to cross the tunnel as the water rises, and eventually she gets stuck in the middle. Amidst the rising current, the water level keeps rising. Hearing cries for help, Joaquín opens the hatch under his floor, and sees Ren struggling in the tunnel. He tries to help, but as soon as she sees Joaquín, Ren starts screaming and trying to call others for help. Panicked, she even tries to pull Joaquín down with her. He has no choice but to break free and close the hatch, leaving Ren to drown. Eventually, the water pipe bursts completely, flooding the bank and Joaquín's basement. Joaquín opens the tunnel entrance cover and quickly cleans up all traces. Then he yanks a rope, causing a pile of computer cases to fall and neatly conceal the tunnel entrance. He grabs the stolen bag of cash and quickly leaves the basement. Meanwhile, the electricity in the entire block goes out. Pitchy and Schwarzenegger, trapped in the bank, try to find a way out, but the rising water level forces them back. Finally, they decide to open a safe connected to the alarm system so the police will come and rescue them before they drown. Upstairs, Joaquín checks on Berta, who has woken up from the sedative. She is furious and immediately lunges at him. Berta pins Joaquín to the floor and angrily yells, "Where is my daughter?" Joaquín tries to explain that Betty is safe, but Berta scolds him for never trusting her. Joaquín responds to Berta with a kiss, trying to persuade her that he has money now, and they can start a new life together. But Berta refuses. She says she likes him, but she can't do that. Then she prepares to inject Joaquín with a drug, so Joaquín has to use force to stop her after giving Berta another sedative. Joaquín quickly cleans himself up and goes to meet the police officers who have arrived at his house. In front of the police, Joaquín pretends to be an ordinary citizen. Shocked about the water leaking into his house, he cooperates fully and answers questions with a bewildered expression. An officer tells Joaquín to wait inside and not to interfere with the crime scene. Meanwhile, Gutman is watching the situation from nearby. He calls Galaretto to ask what happened, but Galaretto can't explain why the plan failed. However, he admits he couldn't retrieve the blackmail documents from safe 155. Hearing that, Gutman gets annoyed and hangs up immediately. A short while later, Gutman arrives at Joaquín's house with another group of police officers. Joaquín opens the door without hesitation, still playing the role of a cooperative, ordinary neighbor. When the officers say they need to search the premises, Joaquín feigns shock and asks if a broken water pipe warrants a house search. But the police clearly state that a bank robbery has occurred. Joaquín immediately allows the search. He has already let Betty out and put her in the same room as Berta, claiming they are his wife and daughter. While officers search the basement, Joaquín sits with Gutman. Galaretto keeps calling Berta's phone, which Joaquín now has and isn't answering. The basement is flooded, and parts of the floor have collapsed, obscuring any trace of the tunnel. The police find nothing unusual and finally decide to leave. But before Gutman leaves, he picks up the phone, thinking it's Joaquín's, and saves his number, saying, "If you think of anything about the robbery, call me." Just a few minutes later, Galaretto arrives at Joaquín's house with Zerdo and Canaria, all three disguised in police uniforms. Joaquín lets them in. While trying to buy time, Joaquín secretly texts Gutman, telling him to return immediately. Meanwhile, Gutman, who just left the house, is angrily calling Galaretto because safe deposit box 748 was opened even though he had warned against it. But Galaretto ignores him and hangs up before starting to question Joaquín. Joaquín maintains his act, insisting he knows nothing about what happened. He says he was alone in the house and that his tenants moved out yesterday. But at that moment, Betty walks out of the bedroom, instantly exposing his lie. Joaquín, not yet seeing Betty behind him, continues with his fabricated story. Galaretto becomes suspicious, draws his gun, and says he will search the house himself. Joaquín tries to warn him that officers just searched the place a few hours ago. Galaretto ignores him and points to Betty, who is standing behind him. He goes to Berta, who is now under the influence of the sedative, then turns back, grabs Betty, and starts pressuring Joaquín to tell the truth, but he still tries to deny it, saying he doesn't know how Berta got in there. Galaretto asks why Berta was drugged and why she was in his bed. Joaquín tries to make up a story to cover it up. Furious, Galaretto pushes Joaquín out of his wheelchair and onto the floor. Then Canario joins in and beats Joaquín severely. Galaretto threatens to kill Joaquín if he doesn't tell the truth and starts detailing how he'll do it. As his men brutally assault Joaquín, Berta's phone suddenly rings. When Galaretto answers, he finds Gutman on the other end, who thinks he's talking to Joaquín. Gutman says he's arrived at the front of the house. Galaretto starts to panic. He orders Zerdo and Canaria to open the door for Gutman. Gutman is taken aback when he sees Galaretto in the house and asks why he has Berta's phone. Galaretto also becomes suspicious of Gutman. He orders Canaria to tie Gutman up. The atmosphere becomes tense. Both sides distrust each other and stare at each other suspiciously. When Galaretto points his gun at Joaquín, he finally confesses, but it's not the truth. Joaquín makes up a new story entirely to save himself. He turns to Zerdo, calling him by his nickname, Lefty, and even acts friendly, as if they know each other well. Joaquín claims that Zerdo was the one who climbed the roof to drug Berta and proposed that Joaquín join him in stealing the money. Zerdo immediately denies it, saying it's all lies, but Joaquín seems well prepared. He enhances his credibility by mentioning the secret safe house that only Galaretto, Canaria, and Zerdo know about. Then Joaquín points to a cabinet in the house. Upon inspection, Zerdo's missing watch is found. Joaquín claims he dropped it when they met to discuss this. The evidence leaves Zerdo speechless, and everyone immediately turns on him. Realizing he's cornered and believing he is about to be killed, Zerdo draws his gun and shoots Canaria, and Canaria immediately shoots back. Then, both men fall to the floor and die. Galaretto, seeing his brother shot before his eyes, collapses in grief. Then Berta wakes up. She sees a gun on the floor, grabs it, and immediately shoots Galaretto to avenge her daughter. Gutman, who was loosely tied up, easily frees himself. He quickly steps in to manage the situation, offering a way to dispose of the bodies scattered around the house. Gutman carries the bodies to the trunk of his car and advises Joaquín on how to clean the bloodstains. Then he asks for the bag of money stolen from the bank, but Joaquín refuses, saying he has an audio recording proving Gutman cooperated with the gang. Gutman shows no fear. He laughs and says what Joaquín has won't help him in the long run. Gutman says this while walking over to take a biscuit from a jar and eat it, unaware that the biscuit is one of those Joaquín had laced with sedatives for Casimiro. Then Gutman turns his gun to threaten Berta. Joaquín has no choice but to let Gutman walk out of the house with the money. As soon as Gutman drives off, the sedative starts to take effect. He feels dizzy and loses control of the steering wheel. Eventually, the car crashes and bursts into flames. The car also contained the bodies he was transporting. Gutman lies dazed in the middle of the road before leaving it to fate whether anyone will come to help him. Many days later, Joaquín's house is clean and tidy. All the rooms are empty, bloodstains and all evidence have been removed, and he is ready to start a new life. And that's where the movie ends. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.